Back from New York, long weekend at the Heisman ceremony. I think a lot of y'all saw that content that we had. But now Georgia can turn its total and unequivocal focus to Ohio State. I'm sure that's been going on, but this is kind of a weird time of year because you just played the SEC championship 7 days ago. There's been a lot of attention on Stetson, obviously, for going to the Heisman Trophy ceremony as one of the finalists. And Georgia players have been dealing with finals as well, which are set to conclude here pretty quick. Um, and you know, this team, they are the favorite to win the national championship. That was the case last year as well, although not as significant a favorite as they are now. And I think that what we'll see in the middle of this week, because finals end on the 13th, on the 14th, which is a Wednesday, is there's going to be sort of full blown concentration from the from the football program right at Ohio State. They've already been looking at it some, obviously, but you know there's going to be no everybody will be thinking about Christmas and making plans for the Peach Bowl and New Year's, but right now everybody at football is having to worry about Ohio State, CJ Stroud and company. And Ohio State's entering this thing, as I wrote about today over on Dog Post. Ohio State's entering this situation uh, just like Georgia did a year ago. I mean, Georgia, there are a couple of differences. Number one, Georgia didn't need help last year getting into the playoff. Ohio State did this year. Secondly, Ohio State's not favored, whereas Georgia was, I think, a 7 point, 6.5 point favorite over Michigan in that game a year ago. So it's similar. It's certainly not exactly the same. And I think that, having, spent time up there with CJ Stroud, he's tall, he's thin. Um, he's a guy that, I mean, he looks the part for sure. All of those guys were pretty. I mean, Stetson's not that much smaller than those guys. I know it's kind of strange for folks people consider Stetson a small person. I mean, not compared to those guys. They all were, about the same size. It seemed, Stetson's shorter than some of those guys, but I mean, CJ Stroud's a thin person. Williams was pretty thin too, and Duggan was not big. There was no Cam Newton or Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was a pretty big guy, as I recall. Um, but the now Georgia can, totally focus on that situation. They were a 7.5 point favorite over Michigan last year. Right now, I'm going to check it right now. It's been 6.5 the whole time. So I don't think that's going to change. No, it's still 6.5. Michigan's has dropped, which is kind of something to monitor. They're not a substantial favorite the way they were over TCU. So I just think it's going to be the path forward here for Georgia is a little different than it's been in the past. Obviously, in 17, they won the league, getting in to be the number three team in the country, and the number three seed, excuse me, in the college football playoff. Alabama sneaking in right at the end. Um, in 18, losing in the SEC championship. Same thing in 19. Well, they lost last year in the SEC championship and got in. This year they won and got in. There's two Big Ten teams. That's never happened before that I can remember. So we really this is a different moment. And Georgia's the defending national champions. Obviously, I do not have any more Keely Ringo signed books. Thank you for everybody who I have this one in my hand, but it's not for sale. Um, Thank you to everyone. If you want a DAWGSTRUCTION, there's two places to get it. One is down below. If you're in Athens, they've got about 25 copies of it, so go get it now. It's a great Red Zone's a great place to go shop, obviously, in Athens, but you can go in there and do your Christmas shopping. I have one product, which is the book, so they have a lot. That's on Clayton Street downtown. But as we get into the quiet before the storm, we are 20 days from this game being played, essentially 3 weeks. And um, everything's building towards this, this moment. Do you have AD Mitchell back in a way that's, he's full go, he can make four receptions. Is everybody good on the offensive line? Is everyone healthy? Are you able to diagnose what Ohio State's doing? Michigan runs trick plays. Jim Harbaugh is going to run a trick play. I don't know if Ohio State really does. They really have played a lot of offense. CJ Stroud, I remember watching him being in a game with in the fourth quarter with Ohio State up like 35 or 40. And I think I tweeted at the time, what in the world is he doing in the game? Because it's a very strange thing, but they really believe in pouring it on. And now they're going to go up against, the best or one of the best defenses in the country in Georgia. And it's going to be a real challenge for Ohio State. I mean, this whole thing, it may be easy to say that, I mean, maybe window dressing, for lack of a better term, talking about how, oh, uh, Georgia's so good on defense and all this stuff. Yeah, they are. That's the problem, is you've got to go deal with them. And, scoring defense went up uh, because of the 30 points that LSU put on them. But, the Dogs are allowing 13 points a game. It's just amazing. Essentially Illinois benefited from Georgia playing. Had it been a normal game, Georgia'd still be the number one defense in the country in terms of scoring defense. So Ohio State's very good defensively too. They're not at Georgia level, but they are really good. Um, they have improved, I would say, in a significant way. They're the 13th team in the country. They're allowing about 20 points a game. That's way better than it used to be for Ohio State. And these two teams, you're talking about Clash of the Titans for sure. This is a big moment. When you talk to people behind the scenes, there is an acknowledgement at Georgia that Ohio State certainly could be like the worst possible matchup in a way. I mean, comparatively speaking, of the three teams, Ohio State could be the excuse me, could be the toughest, you know, out, and you get them right away. But I would say the good news is you get them right away. The bad news is they've not played great. They played better at the beginning of the season than they did at the end. Now they get a chance to kind of reset some stuff. I was talking to somebody last night who's been around the block for a while, and their basic premise was, yeah, but those kind of offenses sometimes it takes them a second or two to get going again if they get going. Talking about going into bowl games, but Clemson never really had that problem. I don't feel like, I'm trying to think back. But I don't think CJ Stroud is Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence either. Um, and I think the challenge for Ohio State, we're going to see where they're at with their injuries, is missing some of the players that they've got missing makes it challenging for them too. This is going to be a real fight. Make no mistake about it. But Georgia's really able now to totally focus in on the task at hand, which is Ohio State. I mean, they both have top seven offenses in terms of total offense. Ohio State scoring over 40 points a game, Georgia at 39 and a half, 39. Um, Georgia didn't play so hot until they put 50 on LSU offensively. But this Georgia team has been pretty explosive, with the exception of three games. Kentucky. Well, let me just wait a second now. Missouri, Kentucky. That's really it. I mean, I was going to say Georgia Tech or possibly Tennessee. Georgia didn't bother to be explosive in the second half against Tennessee. I mean, there was like an inch of rain. Uh, Against Georgia Tech, they scored 37 points. So that's a lot. And I'll tell you the other thing, it seems like they're getting more turnovers lately. Um, this is not a turnover, but the block kick for a touchdown, that's an important moment. You had the Christopher Smith interception. I think there was a fumble at some stage. I know there were fumbles, and there's been special teams. As bad as the punt return for a touchdown was against Mississippi State, we've seen lately that Georgia has been pretty good on special teams changing games against Georgia Tech, against LSU. Those were both. I've been waiting for a block kick. I mean, Stackhouse and Jalen Carter have been getting really close to blocking kicks a lot. They finally got one against LSU, and it changed the. I mean, I don't know if it changed the game, but LSU sort of had a bit of momentum, and from that point forward, they really lost it. So I think right now is the moment where Georgia fans will sort of. I know this because I have data for the last 22 years of patterns of what people read and what they watch and stuff. We've hit a time where there's a little bit of a calm before the storm, and it will really ratchet up after Christmas. Stick with us though. If you want, hey, if you're going to get this, get it now so that I can get it to you and there's no confusion about Christmas, which is coming quicker than you think. And We appreciate everybody watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the coverage from New York. We cannot do that without your support, whether it's watching, subscribing to the website, purchasing the book for yourself or friends. We cannot do this stuff without that. It takes money to get to New York. We don't just go on a magic carpet. So we are not a corporation. We are just us. That's it. So there's no, I mean, CBS, Fox, the AJC, whoever, they all have the .coms. These are all corporate entities. That's not us. Now, I'm not judging that. Just saying that's not us. So when is there a call to action? There's a reason why. Please go support our friends at Red Zone, and thanks. We'll see you on the website.